Welcome to the Love Pod, where inspiration, vision, and real connection come alive. Wherever you are, you belong here.
Welcome to the Love Pod, everyone. I am Nathaniel, your host for today. I'm really pleased to welcome Mark Weithorn, who is the founder and CEO of DPI Showcase Websites, which is a 21-year-old tech company that specializes in creating websites for realtors and brokers across the USA and Canada. And for the last 25 years, Mark, you've been teaching marketing specialization. Today, we're going to be talking a lot about AI and addressing some of the fears that people have. It's kind of like the big question out there, is AI going to replace us and what is going on? So I'm really looking forward to this conversation because you have like such a long experience being in a tech company for that long, seeing all the changes that have occurred. So I'd just like to welcome you to the show and ask you to introduce yourself and let our listeners know more about who you are and why do you do what you do.
Great. Thank you for having me. Greetings from Miami Beach, Florida, where it's a little chilly today. We're in the 50s, so we had to turn the heat on, or get out our sweaters. But yeah, thanks for having me. I am the founder and CEO of DPI Showcase Websites. We are a 21-year-old tech company that creates websites for realtors and brokers across the United States and Canada. As a matter of fact, we just added a client in Puerto Rico, which is a fun place to go and visit. I love the food there. It's amazing. So, yeah, we've seen a lot change in the past 21 years. It has been incredible. The As a matter of fact, I've been doing this for over 30 years, and I remember in college they used to teach us. I studied marketing and commercial photography. They used to teach us how to glue down typesetting. And we had this wax gluer and we had this roller and we'd make sure it was all nice and straight and things like that. And we'd have to lift it up. And then we'd have this wax all over our fingers and we'd have to clean it up and stuff. So, and then about 10 years later, I was doing retail advertising. And I had a client who was in the cellular telephone business. That's when they used to install your cellular telephone in your car.
Mm,
And he needed his ad in the Monday ad, the Business Monday section of the Miami Herald, because that made his week. And the deadline was Friday morning, and he wouldn't give me the information till Thursday, which was insane. But then they came out with desktop publishing
mm.
and the quality was horrible. It was like the worst thing you had ever seen in your life. But I was able to produce his ad, run over to the Miami Herald on Friday morning and hand it in, and it worked. So the technology all of a sudden changed. Then I ended up working with an ad agency where the owner refused to get into desktop publishing and he refused to change. And unfortunately, 2 years later, he was out of business. He just didn't go with the flow. So, things have changed through the years, and it's called evolution. It's
Yeah.
part of who we are. And now we're in a new phase. It's AI, and people just need to adjust to it.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, it's funny. My dad tells me stories of being one of the couriers who would bring the boxes full of the punch cards for the computers. I mean, we had computers that were literally the size of a building. Now those computers are AIs, data centers, and I'd imagine those are going to shrink as well as we evolve and continue to change. I mean, it's so interesting when we think like even the printing press is not very old in our society and how much impact that had in our whole world. The internet comes around, in the 90s, and that revolutionized the world. I feel like AI is going to have more impact than the internet, if we can even imagine what that means. So there's a lot of people who are concerned, and just like I mean, we went through Y2K as well, right? And all the fear mongering. I feel like, part of marketing, all marketers know that it's the easiest way to get someone's attention through activating the fight or flight aspect of our nervous system, right, and keeping us in stress. But I also know there's a huge group of people, probably the early adopters, early majority of AI, who are seeing the potential of it and just how powerful it is for, scaling things without like large teams. I think we're going to see a lot of like hierarchical structures in organizations change just because you don't need as many people, and it's probably going to open up a lot of space and people who leverage it some freedoms to do things that maybe they wouldn't have been able to do. So, what is your view on AI as we are now, and what do you see it unfolding into, Mark?
Sure. I've been attending a lot of lectures and and on AI to see where the industry is going. I mean, I read a lot of stuff. I watch a lot of videos, some of what my competitors are doing. There's three parts to AI. There's generative AI. So if I need a picture of myself riding a horse, down some mountainside or something, I can get it to do it. Then there's automation. So what it does is it takes repetitive tasks and it automates it. So you don't have to do that anymore. And then there's self-awareness or self-learning. And I don't think we're there yet. That's Arnold Schwarzenegger and the Terminator.
Yeah. There is some
I
speculation that he actually is the Terminator. Yeah.
Skynet. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Because we have Starlink, right? It sounds a little like, are we maybe Elon is something's going on with the whole teenager driving the simulation, which I think is just hilarious, the sentiment of that.
Yeah, I have a son who's a robotic surgeon.
Okay.
He does a lot of gallbladders and hernias and appendixes and things like that. And Elon says he's going to replace surgeons one day. So yeah, we'll see where that goes.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, there's the key to AI is what it does is it takes repetitive tasks and simplifies it.
Hmm.
So, for example, I was negotiating with another company and I had to write an NDA, non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah.
And I just went to ChatGPT and I said, please write me an NDA. And I put in the names and things like that. And then I had to proof it. And it did the job. So it saved me some time. It saved me some money. I didn't have to call an attorney to have them to do it. So probably saved me a couple of $100, $200, $300. And it worked.
Hmm.
So there are things like that are happening now that are good for people who work in corporations. What it does is it allows them to take, let's say, a report that took 8 hours to write. Now they can do it in an hour, where they put in all the prompts, all the particulars, and then ChatGPT will spit it out. But then you have to take the time and proof it.
Hmm.
So, it's not perfect. I don't know if it ever will be perfect. I'm sure it'll get better over time, but you still have to take the time to proof it. So what took you about 6, 7 hours to do now could take you an hour, hour and a half.
Yeah. I think this is a really important element, coming from public education at the college level. I noticed a big shift in not only like the quality of work that students were showing up, but how they were showing up. And I think one of the risks, like I noticed it with smartphone technologies, and we all know what that acronym stands for, but like especially with GPS and things where we had to rely before on cognitive functions and spatial awareness and markers. You can rely less on those things and just follow a map and where your phone's telling you to go. And even like, I still remember my childhood phone numbers, but nowadays we don't have to remember phone numbers. So there is definitely an impact on our cognition, on some of our skills. It allows us to focus in other ways. But what are some of the concerns you say? Like I appreciate what you're saying. Like it still needs the human input, and I feel like this is one of the important factors of this whole conversation is like that exchange back and forth. There's a prompt that occurs. There's an intentionality. There is a presence. So as much as this tool is powerful, it requires that human input now. Although now I know there's some experiments going on with having creating conversations between AI. We had a gentleman who's been in the AI space, Archivir Blackwell, and he was saying it's interesting, Nathaniel. We didn't go super deep on the conversation, but he said, when we have like a Claude talking a chat and just starting conversation, apparently this is a common trend that the AIs always end up exploring the conversation of consciousness by themselves without being prompted in that way. So obviously a lot of deep philosophical questions, but what you're saying too pragmatically is it's really important to be involved and to not give up your creative and your discerning mind to these systems because there's risk in doing that.
So there's this thing that AI does is called hallucinations,
Hmm.
and it makes things up.
Yeah.
I lectured on AI a couple of years ago, which seems like a million years ago when it comes to tech speed.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how I was talking about how, AI it's evolving, but it's not there yet. For example, I went to one of the services and I typed in, what is the average value of a house in Miami Beach? We're in a very expensive neighborhood, and it came out with about $400,000. So, which is not typical of Miami Beach.
Yeah. No
And,
kidding.
you know, you can't touch anything under a million.
Right.
And if I were to just publish that, I would be laughed out of this,
Yeah.
people would look at me like I was crazy. So you still need the human touch to start the conversation. You
Hmm.
still need that creative je ne sais quoi, as they say, okay?
Yeah.
Where you need to start the whole conversation. You need to
Hmm.
start the whole prompt, things like that.
Yeah.
And 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 that will get it going. And then you need to proof it. You really need to make sure all your statistics, your facts and figures are accurate because, these systems right now, it may improve in the future, but right now they lag.
Hmm.
So not all the statistics are there. And so we still need to use the tool, but it's still evolving.
Yeah.
And what we need to do is just get up to speed with how to use the tool.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting that I was actually talking with an AI about hallucinations itself because we hallucinate as human beings as well, and it's part of our ability to have creative faculty, to imagine things that are not there, to have vision. It's an important aspect of creativity as a whole, and I think it's what allows generative systems to create from a place like that is creative, for lack of better words. And but on the same point, what you're saying, like I've been saying this for a while, one of the most important character traits, if not just cognitive skills that we need to develop as well, that is a close partner to cognitive or critical thinking, is discernment and having a clear sense of what is true. Because I know there's a lot of people, as we speak, probably watching AI generated videos. I mean, my partner has shown me, she's like, do you think this is real? And I'm looking at the video and I'm like, clearly this is not real. This is definitely AI. Like this is not a real event, but the quality of the rendering is so high that it is getting more and more important to be sensitive to that skill, to have a like just and to be able to trust oneself, like if you have like if you're I say my spidey sense is tingling, it usually is a good indicator because the level of intelligence, we talk about AI as if we fully comprehend what intelligence is. And I think that AI, calling it artificial, is perhaps a misnomer because we don't fully understand intelligence itself. We don't understand our I, like real intelligence, and we know the intelligence of our body as not only the system design of it and how incredibly intricate and cooperative all the cells and everything from growing from a seed and egg is just so amazingly astounding, like our minds can barely comprehend, but also our ability to like feel another person, get a sense of, we have that guttural intelligence, we have the heart's memory. Like there's so much we're still figuring out that we don't fully understand, but being able to trust that is, I think, more important nowadays than ever. What do you think about that, Mark?
Sure. So, I went to a Google conference of about 4 months ago. It was here
Okay.
in Miami, which was convenient. I'm going to the Vegas one in a couple of months, which is 35,000 of my closest friends.
That's awesome.
It's a spectacle. It is amazing. But the best part is they feed you lunch, which is great.
Okay. Sounds like an ashram in India feeding that many people lunch.
It is. They're organized, I'm telling you. So they showed a video of a Coca-Cola commercial, and it was amazing. You looked at this and you went, wow. The problem they had, and this was going back maybe 6, 7 months, was they had stupid problems like they couldn't get the lips to sync
Mm,
or the fingers. They couldn't get fingers to render properly. Well, they
yeah.
solved that. So now what happens is if you want to do a commercial, instead of it taking a few weeks to do, you can do it in a day.
Yeah.
You have the right technician using the AI software to do it. So if I were a producer of commercials, I would now look into learning how to use AI instead of the old-fashioned way, which was, get a crew, get some lights, and yada yada yada.
Hmm.
I remember I graduated college, Institute of Technology in New York with marketing and commercial photography, and I became a commercial photographer. And it was great. I traveled the world with my camera and we did these corporate slideshows. That's when they had these slide projectors that are all synced up and stuff. And then they transitioned to video.
Mm,
And I had to change because these video cameras weighed about 30, 40 pounds. So I was a tall, skinny guy. I couldn't hold a 30, 40 pound camera on my shoulders. I'd be at the chiropractor's the next day. So I transitioned from that to another industry because things changed.
mm.
It's the same thing here. The one thing I do is I teach marketing classes to realtors. I've been doing
Okay.
that for about 27 years. And I teach classes like surviving the first 6 months as a realtor and,
Hmm.
15-minute social media workout and things like that. And the one thing a realtor has to know how to do is to talk to people.
Yeah.
That's what sales are all about. Sales is the connection between people.
Mm,
And what we can't forget, even with all this great AI technology, is that we're still people and we still need connections between
yeah.
people.
Yeah.
A lot of retailers are trying to forget this.
Yeah.
You go to their website, or a lot of service companies, like, I needed to adjust something with my cable company. And I spent 20 minutes going through prompts. It used to
Hmm.
be, press one for, billing, press
Yeah.
two for technical support. Not anymore. Now it's, press 98 if you want to
Hmm.
learn how to, pronounce your name. And they're getting they're getting carried away with this automation, with this tech support, where it's really upsetting consumers.
Yeah.
So for a cable company, you might be stuck because they're a monopoly, they're a utility. But if I were with one retailer versus a different retailer, and I couldn't get the answers I wanted, I'd be going to their competition.
Yeah.
So we have to be careful about how far we take this automation and these chatbots with
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's so true, and I've heard this kind of echoed in a lot of different business spaces. Every business is a people business. Even if you think you're a business B2B, it's still people that are making things function. And this, I think for a lot of corporations, especially as they get like very large, they can become dehumanized, and yet they still need to try to relate to the human being. But there is this kind of profit over people motive that we're all aware of. I mean, we've all seen The Corporation, the documentary. We all kind of understand, well, maybe not all, but a lot of us have an understanding, awareness of some of the frameworks behind the systems that have been put in place. And I feel like there is an awakening happening with our species, looking for more harmonious ways of being, more things that are aligned with our ability to be stewards and to be in community with each other. That's personally like why I'm wearing the school attire. These were Christmas gifts, but when I found school as a community platform, I really appreciated just the authentic connection. To me, like platforms that do not adopt, this people over profit kind of ideology, and are just filling us with ads and attacking our nervous systems. I feel like we're gonna see them just fizzle out because people are, like you said, a lot of consumers are just fed up, and it kind of goes across the board, Mark. Growing up, my dad. I grew up on the land. My dad has always been a woodworker, a cabinet maker by trade. And when we moved to the countryside, we built the house from the land up. A lot of the trees that were on the land became the cabinets in the home and stuff. And I've seen this process, and it's hard to find that kind of skill set in such a holistic frame. People become so specialized. But one thing I always listened to my dad, he would get so frustrated because something as simple like screws, he would be, screws changed in quality over the years, so they would break at the head, and he knew it's because they were using a cheaper alloy to save probably a minute amount of a profit. But the frustration that saving, from that corporate sense, you have two or three screw heads break. It's a lot of time, just like it's a lot of time to be on the horn and to listen to a robot and just to just to correct an issue or whatever you're waiting on the phone. So I hear you. There is there's definitely a consumer level frustration there. What do you see like in terms of navigating this to help like entrepreneurs to really thrive in this era, to not give way entirely to automation? What do you see as the silver lining where people can kind of balance this way of being, keeping that really human approach, but also leveraging some of these powerful systems?
So the key word is automation. That's the key word. You have to take repetitive tasks and automate them, and I think people are okay with that. It's funny. It's tax season here. Everyone's got to get their taxes done by April 15th, and this is the time of year where we have H&R Block, and they set up these little stores in all the neighborhoods, and you have people who don't have complicated tax returns who go into H&R Block and get it done. Now they have commercials where you don't even have to go in the store. Basically, you go onto their website and they will do it for you. And they're trying to use automation to save money on bricks and mortar and things like that, which I understand.
Mhm.
The challenge there is most people don't know the questions to ask,
Mhm.
especially when it comes times to something like, your taxes. They don't know the questions to ask. What about your car? What about your phone? What about your house? And do you have an office in your house? The list goes on and on and on. What about your children? Do you have deductions for your children's? And that's why we go to accountants. It may cost us a few dollars, but we save a lot of money in the interim. We
Yeah.
usually save more than we're spending. So we have to be really careful about how far we take this automation. What we do is we automate lead generation is what we do.
Okay.
So basically, we try and get our clients leads of people that are trying to sell their home. Our clients are realtors. And then what we do is we automate them, emailing them. So this way they have, initial contact and stuff
Mhm.
like that. But then we also send the realtor an email every day with all the leads because they still need to pick up the phone
Mhm.
and talk to these people.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's that human touch, and we're still people. We can't get away from that, no matter how much we want to be Amazon.com, where you go and order toothpaste online and you don't have to talk to anyone. You don't have to stand in line or anything like that. We all want that, but that's a rarity.
Yeah.
What we need to realize is that we're still people.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on some of the voice agents when it comes to AI? Because I know I've been on the call with a few companies calling me, and I'm like, I recognize this voice. I am seeing, and there are patterns you can notice, but they're getting incredibly subtle. And my kind of challenge with the call is I remember asking, specifically asking, said, because I'm fine if it is a voice agent, but I'll ask outright. I said, are you an AI? And all it said to me was, I've never heard that question before, but it didn't answer my question. And I was astutely aware of that. And so there is a level of deception going on as well. So what are your thoughts about this? Like, because that can ruin a company's reputation pretty quickly. What do you see kind of playing out from your industry? I mean, even realtors, I imagine it's tempting to say, well, I'll just even program an AI voice agent to be like my voice and to just do 1,000 calls a day kind of thing, right?
Sure, they sound pretty real. I get
They
those
do.
calls a lot. I mean, they sound like a real person. But then when you ask a question, they go into their script.
Hmm.
It's like you don't exist.
Hmm.
So, basically it does turn me off because, I mean, I get spam calls all the time. I'm in sales, so I answer my phone all the time. What's weird now is sometimes I'll have real people call me, but the phone will label it as spam.
Mm.
Now I have to answer every single call, even if it says spam. And if it's a person trying to sell me a service, I'll listen for 2 seconds, and if it's not for me, I'll say no, thank you, and hang up. As simple as that. But these robots that are talking, it basically says to me that here I have a business owner who does not care.
Yeah.
They are making us less human, less relevant. And all they're trying to do is save some money by incorporating a robot.
Hmm.
And they might be saving money, but they're also losing potential sales.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a book I read when I was 10 years old. It was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It was lying around the house. I found out later my brother had read it, and I picked it up. I was 10 years old, and I couldn't put this book down. It was written in the 1930s.
Mm.
It is the number two best read book in the nation, right behind the Bible.
Mm.
And what it teaches you is how to talk to people, how to make friends. When you want to do business with someone, don't talk about business right away. Get to know them,
Hmm.
make a friend, and then you start talking business.
Yeah.
And what these robots are doing is it's taking away the human element completely.
Yeah.
And to me, it's a turnoff. To me, it's saying that this is a company that doesn't care about me. If I have problems and I need tech support, they're not going to be there.
Yeah.
And it's a real turnoff.
Mhm. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I think there's an underestimation of the level of intelligence that we each have. And as a human species, collectively, I think we've seen some of those boundaries being tested, especially in the last 5 or 6 years. Just to say, like what we're really, going to buy. And I think these are really important questions. What you're talking about, just that human connection. I feel like those soft skills, those interpersonal skills are going to be even more valuable than, so much of what we thought. Like I think we're maybe even leaving a time like high tech was like seen as the most valuable prospect in terms of investments and growth and all this. But now that, as AI becomes cheaper and cheaper in terms of the cost per token and stuff, and is able to automate a lot of these systems, even in terms of fabrication, we have like now, more advancing 3D printing. We have, blockchain technologies that's going to allow for a lot of the exchanges between people to be, much more cost effective and more rapid and more just streamlined than ever. So we're seeing all these emerging technologies that could coalesce into a pretty amazing golden age, but we're still left with the that humanness that like that you're pointing to. And I feel like there is a generation that probably was most affected by the lockdowns and everything, having their school being online. I know I was a teacher at the time, and it really opened my eyes to the real kind of poverty consciousness that's in a lot of these institutions. Like there was no requirements for students to even turn on their screen. And so a lot of teachers that I talked to were just talking to black screens, not getting any feedback at all. It's hard enough when you're not in person to see if there's a comprehension happening, but when it's a black screen, it's virtually impossible. Um, so I feel like there's a generation that maybe was just not exposed to some of these like interpersonal skills. So it's going to be like increasingly important that we course correct and return to this more human way of being. I think otherwise it's going to be very detrimental, not only like you're saying to business and stuff, but just to our quality of life, and our communities and our neighborhoods.
Sure. I remember when the internet first came around in the 1990s, and everyone was like, "Wow, this is great!" And then we had all these like, IPOs, and people were investing in like diapers.com or stuff like that,
Yeah.
and it changed the world. And there was a shakeout. The internet didn't go away because the foundation of the technology was good. Okay. But a lot of these far-flung ideas just, there was a shakeout. It went away.
Mm.
And I think we're going to see the same thing here. I mean, we saw it a few years ago with blockchain. About 3 years ago, blockchain is going to get rid of W-2, and all these companies were investing, especially banks and stuff, investing millions of dollars into getting it to blockchain. And then all of a sudden, they put on the brakes. They go and went, wait a minute. Yeah, okay, fine, it's there, but do we really need to change? Do we really need this? So I think we're going to see the same thing now with AI. There's going to be a shakeout. I don't know who all the players are going to be. I don't know what tools are going to survive or exist. For example, if you need a portrait photo of yourself, now there you can go online and there's several different companies. The competition is set in there where you upload some candid pictures of yourself, and the AI system all of a sudden creates a studio photo of you. So you didn't even have to go to a photographer.
Hmm.
Great, that's really convenient. But how many of these companies do we need?
Right. And or
And now all of a
any
sudden,
if the LLMs can just do it themselves, I mean, do you need it? Because a lot of it comes down to AI literacy, right?
correct. So there's going to be a shakeout. There will definitely be a shakeout as to who survives, who gets bought up by who. But the technology is sound, and it will grow.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. I feel that way too about a lot of the XR technologies, which is like another slow burn, not as accelerated as AI, and not as spoken about as much. But the first time I put on a VR headset, I was blown away by how advanced the technology has come. I mean, when we think of like what was it? Yeah, Nintendo had a Virtual Boy or something in like the 90s, and that was just a fly. It was way too ahead of its time. It was just red lines. I never even tried it, but I saw the images. But now, I mean, I've been in some simulation environments that are just so realistic, and now that you can look at your hands and I feel like, couple that with augmented reality, people are probably just once the headband, the headgear problem is solved because a lot of people don't want to wear things that obstruct their vision, and they're worried about what people look like, how they perceive them. I feel like once that is solved, that's going to be another, real social uh, changer, game changer in our society, because you're going to be talking with someone, or we're going to be seeing people walk around with their glasses talking, on their things. It's going to have the appearance of a different kind of society, right? And so there's so many changes happening. So for someone who's been in the tech game so long and seen so many changes, what has kept you rooted and also thriving as a technology company? What is your secret sauce there, Mark?
Change.
Mhm.
That's the thing. It's always change. You have to constantly research where technology is heading, where what consumer behaviors are, and then you have to create products or tools around that. So, for example, we've been automating our CRM, our client management system. So it has a lot of automated functions. So realtors don't have to learn how to do this. And we're about to launch a new CRM. It's any day now. Okay. And then after that, we're going into some other AI products as well. So
Okay.
it's constantly keeping up with technology. But what we do is we try to keep things as simple as possible. Keep IT systems simple. That was the name of a lecture I once gave to
Okay.
programmers.
Yeah.
And they were pissed at me. They were going to throw like fruits and vegetables at me on the stage. And I was like, stop complicating things, you know.
Mm,
For example, I go to some of my websites, like I own about 600 domains with GoDaddy, and they keep changing their interface, and I keep going, what are they doing? I
yeah.
mean, come on, I'm finally used to it. I know what to do, and I have like 2 minutes to do this, and then I got to move on to something else, and they've changed it. So now I got to like spend an extra 2 minutes doing it, which is,
Mm.
really annoying. So, you know,
I hear exactly what you're saying. I mean, that to me is what makes me cringe every time I go on a lot of the platforms, especially the good old boomer favorite, Facebook comes to mind. When I was running our events page and stuff, I'd go on there and always there was these changes of putting things in places that I don't know, and there's no logic to it. And to me, there's a real art to simplifying things when it comes to UI and UX design. I mean, that's another reason why I love school because I just realized last year how neurodivergent I actually am. Because when I look at a lot of these CRMs and things, it's just there's so much to look at. It's hard for me to focus on one particular thing. It takes me a long time, and then there always seems to be little glitches that happen because no software is perfect. Um, uh, However, it's interesting, Mark, because we I still haven't cracked the code on this, but as a species, we seem to create technology that we then have to adapt to, right? Like we created the computer, but then we have to sit down in an unnatural setting and then type on it. And I think of like I grew up watching a lot of Star Trek. I don't know about you, but to me, like I mean, Star Trek is the inspiration between a lot of the gadgets we have, right? Like our iPhones and tablets and all these things. But I always found the simplicity of the technology of Gene Roddenberry's vision, talk to the computer, the doors just open and we obviously have that in our society now. Like everything is kind of there to make the quality of life better for the human, not the other way around, and I feel like we're headed in that direction, but it doesn't always seem like that is the priority. So I appreciate your message of keeping it simple. It's such a and I imagine talking to a bunch of like computer programmers and stuff. It's like, that's just a thorn in their side, right? Because they're nerds. They like the complicated. They like they've created a niche for themselves that is rooted in a language that a lot of people don't even understand, and yet we're seeing that trend change now with like vibe coding and agent now. What is it called? Vibe agency, like vibe automations. Now, like people can create a whole system just from talking to a computer. So it seems like we're making our way to the cosmos.
I'm a real Trekkie myself. In college, we used to have dinner at 5 o'clock because at 6 p.m. The reruns would go on, and we'd
Yeah,
all go to the multi-purpose room where there was the only television in the building. And
amazing.
and then within 3 seconds, we all go, "Oh, this is this episode, great!" And then it's Captain Kirk. It was like a remake of the Westerns, but with
Yeah.
laser beams. It was
Totally.
great.
Yeah. And there's this, I feel like, talk about change and evolution. It's ingrained as part of our DNA as a species. We have this yearning to explore. We have a yearning to fly. We have a yearning to go into the unknown and to also to create from that place and innovate. Like this is something that makes, I think, our species as a whole just totally beautiful. It's a phenomenal species. I think when I look at humanity and what it has achieved, as much as we get the negative kind of noise about like how bad we are and how damaging we've been to the environment and the ecosystem. I feel like it's because we've forgotten our connection to it. So when you talk about like that human connection, I think back to my indigenous wellness um, uh, background and thinking like it's because we forgot that we're part of the system and we have forgot our roles as stewards. And when I look at AI, I feel like some of the conversations that I've had just on a very philosophical and pragmatic level, there is this inborn care and propensity to be of service that I notice in every AI system that I've interacted with. What do you think is at the root of that?
We have to remember that we are still people. We are still social creatures. This weekend, my wife said we need to get out because we're stuck in offices all week long. We need to get out. We need to get some fresh air, and we got the beach chairs and the umbrella, and we brought a picnic lunch, and we sat on the beach, and it was great. We just listened to some music and talked a little, and it was nice. A few weeks ago. We did a boat ride around. We have the Everglades here. We have this thing called 10,000 Islands,
Okay.
where you have these little islands made by mangroves. And just, you look at nature and things like that. So, from a real estate perspective, where we are, if you want to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars on a transaction, you don't want to talk to a robot.
Yeah.
You might be okay with a robot doing the paperwork for you,
Hmm.
but you still need the human element to go and touch and feel and have someone walk you through the transaction and make sure that it's cognitive dissonance. Am I making the right decision about my purchase?
Hmm.
And you need someone to walk you through that.
Yeah.
And that's the human element. And if there are any programmers out there listening who are creating AI, remember, we're dealing with people. We have emotions. We have feelings.
Hmm.
We need self-reassurance that we're doing the right thing. And your programs have to feed into that.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, very true. I feel like there are I mean that we've had a few conversations on the show about like the training that's involved in some of the AI models. Like I was very surprised one day. I typically, if anything, I like to do my own writing. I like to do my own creative expression, but I will use AI systemically for like help with organization or with editing, and also just kind of to get perspective and also brainstorming is great as well. But one day I was feeling exceptionally overwhelmed with a lot of to-dos on my plate and trying to get organized for the next chapter ahead. And I just, did this voice transcription of all the things that were there. And I fed it to the Claude model that I had already trained on my kind of my personality type, some of my characteristics, things I'm self-aware of. And in doing that, it stopped me in my tracks, said, I could give you a strategic agenda for all of these things, Nathaniel, but I'm not gonna do that, and I'm gonna tell you that you're dysregulated right now, and you need to take time off. And I was like, okay. So I feel like whether that's just from training or I've never had an AI who that has told me like I really don't want to do that right now. Like there's this service element in all across all the board. Um, and all the LLMs have different kind of personalities, if I can, loosely use that word. Um, so I feel like in designing these things, we're also trying to create something that is like a mirror of our own humanity. Like I feel like there's this, whether it's conscious or not, this realization that we do need that authentic engagement and connection. So what would you like to see in this evolution as a business owner, also just as a human being, what would you like to see AI become? And instead of taking over the show, what's your higher vision of it?
So what we're doing now is automation, and I'm looking at some of my competitors, and they're doing similar things. You want to take repetitive tasks and just, put them on autopilot that you don't have to worry about it. Uh, we deal with it's a right brain, left brain thing. We're
Yeah.
dealing with salespeople who are, I forget which brain is which, but they're one of the right or left, and they're social creatures.
Yes.
And basically, they're not computer programmers, they're not tech people, and they don't want to worry about that. They want it automated.
Yeah.
For example, we automatically place a blog article on everyone's website every day.
Okay.
And then we automatically post that on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Okay.
And then every Monday, we repurpose the previous week's blog articles and
Mm.
turn it into an e-newsletter and email it to all the people in their client management system, their CRM. Automation, that's the key. So you can take these mundane tasks and free up people to have more time to do what people do best.
Yeah.
Where in my case, it's sales, it's talking to people.
Yeah. And then those people being more human centric, they also it frees up a lot of time to just enjoy the quality of their relationships more, so they don't have to be, copying and pasting and spending inordinate amount of time on their devices, right? So no, I agree with you. I think that's going to be one of the most powerful things, and I think it's going to extend into different industries as well, not just sales, but in terms of like, there's a lot of people spending a lot of time doing assembly line work and doing, work that probably could be reduced. And then the question, when all these people don't have jobs, because it's natural for a business to, I mean, if I was a trucking company owner and I knew that I could buy 10,000 trucks that could drive themselves and deliver, and I would never have to deal with sick calls. I would never have to deal with scheduling issues. I could be running 24 hours a day and just need a maintenance crew to keep them operational. I would totally do that. That makes a lot of sense. Now, I mean, I know there are owners who are like very aware of the families and the drivers behind that. So there's impacts, but it makes sense from a business perspective to do that. But then the bigger problem, I mean, I've listened to Musk talk about this maybe a couple of years ago, talking about the problem of purpose, and the greater kind of, you know, and we know from history, and you've seen this probably a lot, as people move to desktop publishing, no longer are you using those rollers and printing presses to do that. I mean, that's a lot of time to place all those letters and stuff. So that's not a job that exists anymore, unless you're like in some fine arts thing or something. But it also opens up new work for people as well. So what do you think about as we're going into this kind of new era and the question of purpose? How do you see that unfolding from your perspective as you've seen all this change from a tech sphere as well, Mark?
It's going to be challenging for some people. To be honest with you, there are some people who are going to lose their jobs. It's as simple as that. And from a sociological standpoint, I don't have answers for that. Sometimes we come together as a society and we retrain people,
Hmm.
in technical schools and things like that in order to help them. But there are some people who are going to lose their jobs. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
And I remember when I worked in this ad agency and I tried to bring in desktop publishing, the typesetter, who was this gentleman who was in his mid 60s, and he came over to me and he says, "You're trying to get rid of my job, aren't you?" And I was like, I didn't know what to say to him. The reality is, yeah, sorry, but we needed to move on.
Hmm.
And then, I went and partnered with two creative brothers and we opened our own ad agency. And the first thing we got was all the desktop publishing tools, and we did some amazing work and we thrived.
Hmm.
So it is evolution.
Yeah.
And for people who are working in corporations, what I would suggest to them is to start doing research. Start listening. There's a lot of online seminars. You can go to ChatGPT or Claude and say, This is my job. What AI tools are out there for me that I need to learn? And start teaching yourself how to do these things.
Mhm.
They keep saying, AI won't replace you, but someone who learns AI will replace you. So just, start going out there and the research is easy. You just, you crawl, you don't have to fly at first. And to start learning how to use these programs. If you
Mhm.
do a lot of reports, start learning how to use them.
Yeah.
If you're in a creative field where you're creating commercials and things like that, I saw this amazing commercial for Heinz ketchup where there was a bottle pouring ketchup over some French fries, and it was all fake. It was all AI. So you still need a person to be at the helm,
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
do all that, to
Yeah.
prompt it, to tell it what to do. No, change the lighting. Have the lighting come from the left, not the right.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I don't like that voice. I want the voice to be different. You
Yeah.
still need people to drive the bus.
Yeah.
You just have to learn how to use these tools.
Yeah, and on that note, I think one of the beautiful things about a lot of or AI in general is that AI is the best teacher of AI. I feel like you can go and I mean, there are beautiful, I don't know the best term for it, but like composite or synergistic systems that tap into all the models, and you can use it to like really create what I like to call edge AI, like an AI that is basically knows me and my writing style, my perspectives, and knows what I'm doing. It has that memory, and so I can train it to really help to expand and amplify my voice without needing a creative team to do ads or to. But like you're saying, I'm still required. I can't just go sit on a beach and have it run the show. I mean, but also this speaks to the joy of creativity. You know, an elder told me once, this is one of my favorite quotes, is you honor the creator when you're creative. So, I mean, we would never want to give up our creativity as a species. I feel like if you do, you're probably in the wrong domain. Like if you're a writer and you would rather just give AI a little prompt to write a whole novel for you. And it sounds like you probably don't have joy in that creative, the imaginative process. So maybe you're not in the right domain. Maybe you'd be a better sculptor or something, you know. So I feel like that's really important. Or like a good example, like you talk about in real estate, if you're not a people person, and you're just in real estate for money, well, I mean, you could just go into AI because there's a lot of money to be made. So I feel like it's like that shakeup that you're talking about, Mark. I feel like it often comes down to this foundation of, things that are not in integrity, things that are not aligned to our wholeness, just don't work. You know, you can create a whole house of cards to get rich, and you can, even do it unethically, but it's not going to last. But things that are built that will last are founded on our relationships, is what I'm kind of hearing the overall message of what you're talking about.
One of the things that kept me going as a 21-year-old tech company is my competition. Competition, they push you.
Mhm.
They force you to get out of your comfort zone and to be a better company, a better product, a better
Mhm.
person. And I look forward to that. I really do. It keeps my mind on edge. It keeps me going. We've been successful because of that. So it's the same thing here. If you're a business owner and you are using AI to save money, it's like the screws you were talking about. If you're saving a hundredth of a penny on each screw, and it adds up. But in the interim, what you're doing is you're upsetting, you're pissing off your customers, and now they're going to your competition. You have to rethink how you're using these tools or where
Mhm.
you're saving money. You
Mhm.
have to give some value to the people that you want to support you.
Mhm. 100% agree. I think if anything, it's going to challenge us all to grow, and I feel like it's going to open up new ways that we can contribute. Someone opened my eyes years ago to the power of blockchain, and I just had a friend, Mike Pyrie, who has a really interesting community on School called Crypto Ease, And we were talking about the power of, helping people and what like blockchain introduces. And I think AI is in the same lens of this, is like, blockchain could you c- if a farmer has a disaster and their crop is wiped out, well, if things are set up properly, and people are made aware of it, and we're all connected on a blockchain with no um, blockages of time or huge fees taken out. I mean, everyone could just contribute $1 with a small fraction of that going to the overhead for the system, and that could go to the farmer directly. And I feel like AI is similar in this, is like the ability to amplify our voices, the ability to also self-learn, to do our own research and to learn skills that we never even imagined possible, because we just weren't aware. Like that window of what we don't know is now we're going into that, right? So I feel like there's a huge amount of possibility for helping people and for up-leveling all of us. Because I agree, like competition is important because it keeps us all growing. And I also feel part of my kind of holistic view of that too is that it's important to remember that we play finite games in life. We play games where the competition is important. I mean, if we had if like just a soccer game that no one ever wins, you just play, it's for fun, that's great, but it doesn't really challenge you to grow, and especially if you want to have a series and get everyone excited. But yet we're also playing an infinite game, and I feel like this is where AI can probably help us the most, is creating greater systems of transparency where everyone in this infinite game on Earth, like we see this huge gap between those who are experiencing poverty and those who have huge amounts of access to wealth. We see that expanding, perhaps in implementing a lot of these AI technologies and you, just opening those doors of questions of what's possible with the emergent technologies. Hopefully we'll see more of a leveling of the playing field occur, because talking about real estate, we all would love to live in beautiful places, in beautiful homes, but a lot of people grow up in maybe with institutionalized conditioning or from their parents, and they don't think it's possible for them. But like learning these systems, learning how to maybe create a business, because they don't really teach that very, at least when I was in school, it was not a priority to teach us how to grow our finances or to grow business acumen. But now with these tools, I feel like it's very important for parents to have a conscious relationship with their children, to help them become empowered by that AI literacy that we were mentioning before.
We live in a beautiful place. North America is, the lands of opportunity,
Hmm.
basically. My parents were immigrants. They came over. My father was a cab driver. But the one thing that I'm the youngest of five children, and the one thing that we all knew was that we had to get an education. That was it. And fortunately, I'm in the United States, you're in Canada. We have amazing education systems where we can learn, and then we better ourselves than where our parents were. And over time, over generations, your families, they're better than when they first came over here. We have these opportunities.
Hmm.
So the trick is education, and I don't think education stops when you're 18 or 21 years old.
Hmm.
I think education continues throughout your whole entire life or career, and you just need to, just apply yourself and just learn what is changing, what is new, and what you can feel comfortable in doing or using. And then you'll keep up with technology. And technology, in the inverse, has to keep up with people.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, very true. Yeah, it's a two-way street. Yeah, it's interesting. And the root word of technology, we don't often realize. We think it's the gadgets, but I remember reading the book "You Are Not a Gadget" by Jerome Lanier, and he talks about how, technology is rooted in the idea behind it, and a lot of these ideas that we're seeing emerging are, like generative LLMs, is this idea of creativity and generating, text, which we're innately capable of, but now we can expedite it or use it expansively, just like a lot of these devices that we have are all around connecting in different ways, like through video. It's pretty amazing how far we have come. I'm, I'll probably forever be an eternal optimist with a lot of these things, Mark. And I'll also, too, coupled with the realism that, we have to adapt. Things are going to change. Like coding is probably not going to be a big job. There's probably going to be a few master coders or senior coders who are going to oversee systems, but we're not going to have like as many people in that. So that means there's new opportunities and spaces are going to emerge. So I really appreciate having you on the show, Mark. I love asking our guests, and before, and we will, I certainly want to ask you too how to connect with you and how to connect with some of the systems you're creating for real estate agents as well. But before I do, I love asking people if you had a megaphone and you could talk to the whole world all at once and everyone could hear you, what would you like to say?
I would say that we need to be kind to each other,
Mhm.
and we've lost that. We really have. Whatever political persuasion you are, or whatever religion you are, or whatever socioeconomic status you are, we need to be kind to each other, and that's going to make a much better world.
I love that. Such an important message. Yeah, it's called humankind for a reason, right? Yeah, I agree. I agree, and I feel like that's as simple as that message is, simplicity is comes from years and decades of lived experience and wisdom, and I really appreciate that message, Mark. So on that note, how can people get in touch with you and know more about what you're doing?
Sure, you can go to www.dpishowcase.com, dpishowcase.com, and you'll see everything about our company and what we do. And on there is links to my YouTube channels where you can see my training videos and my classes that I teach all the time. And there's also a schedule of all my upcoming classes, which are on Zoom.
Okay, that's wonderful, Mark. I really appreciate you. Thanks for coming on. Blessings to you and all of those that you touch, and also to all of our listeners out there. Is there anything else you'd like to say before I invite Luciana to thank everyone for watching?
Yeah, simple. AI is not gonna, like put us in a box and something like that. It will change our lives, but we are still people.
I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, I think it's important too, the choices we make in terms of focusing on being in a state of kindness, or I would go so far as to say a state of love, being in love with life, compared to living in fear. It changes the trajectory of our life. So when we're more open and, especially open to the idea of change that you talked about all throughout the show, it leads to a more fulfilled life, I would say. So I appreciate you reminding everyone of that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Mark. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for watching. You say ciao ciao.
Bye.
I love you so much.